It all began on a cold, rainy afternoon when I, a simple dentist named Fred, found myself caught in a web of secrets far beyond anything I'd ever imagined. That day, I visited a seemingly ordinary house to treat an elderly man for a toothache. Little did I know, this visit would unravel a haunting story hidden behind locked doors and shadowed hallways. The man, who introduced himself as Mr. Roberts, was polite but distant, his eyes darting nervously whenever I asked about the faint sounds of movement coming from upstairs. It wasn't until I excused myself to fetch my tools that I stumbled upon something chilling: a cabinet filled with rows of prescription bottles, none of which matched the symptoms he had described earlier. As curiosity gnawed at me, I couldn't help but notice a flicker of movement outside the window. There she was, a young woman peering through the cracks of a boarded-up window, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes wide with desperation. Her frail hands clutched the edges of the wooden slats as if clinging to life itself. My heart raced. Who was she? And why did Mr. Roberts act so strangely whenever I mentioned her? When I confronted him, his demeanor shifted instantly. His calm facade crumbled into anger, and he threatened to call the police if I dared meddle in what he called family matters. But it was too late. I knew then that something sinister lurked beneath the surface. This wasn't just a case of overprotective parenting. It was imprisonment. The girl's hollow gaze burned into my memory, begging me to intervene. Yet every step forward felt like walking through quicksand, dangerous and suffocating. As I prepared to leave, one thought consumed me. How could anyone lock away their own flesh and blood in such darkness? That night, as the storm clouds gathered and lightning illuminated the sky, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The image of her hollow eyes haunted me. Christy was trapped in a prison disguised as a home, and it was up to me to free her. Armed with nothing but determination and a small kit of tools, I crept through the shadows toward the house. My heart pounded like a drum as I approached the towering iron fence topped with razor-sharp barbed wire. Every step felt heavier than the last, knowing that one misstep could mean disaster. Summoning every ounce of courage, I scaled the fence, my hands slicing against the jagged edges, but I barely registered the pain. All I could think about was reaching her before it was too late. As I landed on the other side, an ear-piercing alarm shattered the silence. Panic surged through me. They were onto me already. Then came the snarling growls. A pack of guard dogs released by Mr. Roberts charged at me from the darkness, their teeth glinting under the moonlight. I fumbled for the pepper spray tucked into my pocket and sprayed wildly, narrowly avoiding their snapping jaws. One dog lunged at my leg, its teeth grazing my calf, leaving a searing gash. Gritting my teeth against the agony, I stumbled forward, adrenaline fueling my movements. Finally, I reached the window where I'd seen Christy days earlier. Her pale face appeared again, pressed against the glass, her lips mouthing words I couldn't hear over the chaos. "I'm here to help you," I whispered urgently, prying open the lock with trembling fingers. Just as she stepped out, weak and unsteady, a booming voice echoed behind us. It was Mr. Roberts, his silhouette framed in the doorway, his eyes blazing with fury. "She'll die out there," he screamed, advancing toward us. "Her body can't handle the outside world." I shielded Christy with my body, desperation clawing at my chest. He wasn't going to stop. Not without force. Reaching into my bag, I pulled out a sedative syringe I'd brought just in case. As he lunged at me, I jabbed it into his arm, causing him to stagger back, clutching the wound. But the struggle wasn't over yet. His enraged shouts echoed through the house as he fought to stay conscious, grabbing a nearby lamp and hurling it at me. It grazed my shoulder, sending shards of porcelain flying everywhere. Blood trickled down my arm, but I ignored the sting, focusing solely on getting Christy to safety. With trembling hands, I guided her through the maze-like corridors of the house, each step feeling like an eternity. Behind us, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Mr. Roberts was regaining his strength faster than I'd anticipated. We burst through the front door, sprinting across the yard as the dogs resumed their relentless pursuit. Christy tripped, crying out in fear, but I hoisted her up, urging her onward. The distant wail of sirens pierced the air, likely called by neighbors alarmed by the commotion. There was no time to lose. We finally reached my car, slamming the doors shut just as the first drops of rain began to fall. Breathing heavily, I glanced at Christy, who sat frozen in the passenger seat, her wide eyes reflecting both terror and awe. For the first time in years, she was free, but freedom came at a cost. And as we sped away into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of our fight for her future. The first time Christy stepped outside, it felt like opening a door to an alien world. Her eyes widened with awe and confusion as she took in the cacophony of sounds. The honking cars, the hum of motorcycles, the distant roar of airplanes slicing through the sky. She clutched my arm tightly, her knuckles white, as if afraid the ground beneath her feet would vanish. "What is that?" she whispered hoarsely, pointing upward at a jet streaking across the horizon. I followed her trembling finger and smiled faintly. "That's an airplane. It flies people from one place to another." Her lips parted in disbelief, and for a moment she seemed frozen, overwhelmed by this revelation. As we walked further into the city streets, every new sight triggered a flurry of questions. Neon signs blinked above us, casting kaleidoscopic reflections on the pavement. Christy flinched at the sudden flashes of light, clutching her chest as though they might burn her. "Why do those lights move?" she asked, her voice tinged with both fear and curiosity. "They're advertisements," I explained gently, trying to mask my own sadness at how much of the world had been stolen from her. But before I could elaborate, a car horn blared nearby, startling her so violently that she stumbled backward into me. Her breathing quickened, panic rising in her eyes. "It's okay," I reassured her, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "It's just a car. They use horns to warn others or get attention." But the challenges didn't stop there. As we crossed a busy intersection, a group of strangers approached us, their expressions a mix of concern and suspicion. One man leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "Is she all right? Does she need help?" he asked, eyeing Christy's disheveled appearance and wide-eyed stare. Before I could respond, another woman chimed in, louder this time. "She looks lost. Maybe she has some kind of mental issue. Should we call someone?" The words stung like needles. My heart raced as I stepped protectively in front of Christy, shielding her from their prying gazes. "She's fine," I said firmly, my tone sharp enough to cut through their assumptions. "She's with me." Their skepticism only deepened. A third person joined the fray, pointing accusingly. "You sure about that? She doesn't look like she knows where she is." The accusation hung heavy in the air, making my pulse thunder in my ears. Christy whimpered softly behind me, her grip tightening on my jacket. I turned slightly to meet her frightened gaze, silently promising to keep her safe. Summoning every ounce of composure, I addressed the crowd. "Listen, I understand your concern, but everything is under control. She's recovering from something very personal and she needs space. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but it was the only way to diffuse the situation without revealing too much. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then slowly the group dispersed, muttering among themselves. I exhaled sharply, realizing I'd been holding my breath. Turning back to Krista, I found tears streaming down her cheeks. I don't belong here, she choked out, her voice breaking. This world is too loud, too fast. I can't. Her knees buckled, and I caught her just in time, lowering her carefully to the curb. Sitting beside her, I wrapped an arm around her trembling shoulders. You'll learn, I murmured, brushing away her tears. It's scary now, but you're stronger than you think. You've already survived more than anyone should ever have to. Her sobs subsided gradually, replaced by shaky breaths. For the rest of the evening, I guided her through the simplest tasks. How to hold a phone, how to press buttons on a remote control, even how to cross the street safely. Each lesson was met with equal parts wonder and frustration. Yet despite the overwhelming nature of it all, there were moments when her face lit up with pure joy, like when she figured out how to turn on the TV. Those fleeting smiles reminded me why I couldn't give up. Not on her. Not ever. At first, Christy viewed me with suspicion, her eyes darting nervously whenever I approached. To her, I was just another stranger, an intruder who had disrupted the only life she'd ever known. You're not here to hurt me, are you? She asked one evening, her voice trembling as she clutched the edge of the couch. I knelt beside her, meeting her wary gaze with a calm smile. No, Christy. I'm here to help you see the world. The real world. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. It wasn't trust yet, it was curiosity, fragile and tentative, like the first bud of spring. Over time, that curiosity blossomed into something more profound. Every day became an adventure, a lesson in survival wrapped in moments of pure wonder. The first time we went for ice cream, her eyes widened in astonishment as she tasted chocolate for the first time. It's cold, she murmured, licking the spoon hesitantly before breaking into a delighted grin. But it's sweet, too. That laugh, bright and unguarded, was a melody I hadn't realized I'd been missing until then. Then there was the bus ride. She clung to my arm as the vehicle rumbled forward, her breath hitching at every bump and turn. Why does it move so fast? She whispered, half terrified, half amazed. By the end of the journey, however, she leaned against the window, watching the city blur past with childlike fascination. And the sunset, that golden hour when the sky blushed pink and orange, left her speechless. We sat on a hill overlooking the horizon, her hand brushing mine as she whispered, "Is this what freedom feels like?" But our newfound connection faced its greatest test during what should have been a simple afternoon at the park. It started innocently enough. Christy giggled as ducks waddled toward us, their feathers shimmering under the sunlight. For once, she seemed carefree, her laughter ringing through the air like wind chimes. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. A shadow loomed over us, followed by a voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Christy!" Her father stormed across the grass, his face twisted with fury. Before I could react, he grabbed her wrist, yanking her away from me. She screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks as she struggled against his grip. "Please, Dad, don't take me back, please!" Her cries pierced my chest, igniting a fire of desperation within me. "Let her go!" I shouted, stepping between them. His glare burned into me, hatred and fear warring in his eyes. "Stay out of this! You've done enough damage already!" His fingers tightened around her arm, and I saw her wince in pain. My fists clenched, adrenaline coursing through my veins. This wasn't just about protecting her anymore. It was about giving her the choice she'd been denied her entire life. "Christy deserves to live her own life," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "And you know it." For a moment, silence hung heavy between us, broken only by Christy's sobs. Then, with a final venomous glance, he released her, retreating into the crowd. She collapsed into my arms, shaking uncontrollably. "I thought he'd never let me go," she choked out, her tears soaking my shirt. Holding her close, I vowed silently that I would do everything in my power to ensure she stayed free. Not just from him, but from the chains of fear that had bound her for so long. It wasn't long before Christy's father resurfaced, his presence looming like a storm cloud over our fragile new life together. Unbeknownst to us, he had hired a private investigator to track our every move. Where we went, what we did, even the smallest details of our daily routines. The man followed us relentlessly, snapping photos and jotting down notes as though building a case against me. One evening, I found an envelope slipped under my apartment door. Inside were grainy photographs of Christy and me walking through the park, along with a chilling note. "You're meddling in matters that don't concern you. Return her or face the consequences." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just paranoia, it was obsession. Determined not to let fear dictate our lives, I tried to shield Christy from the escalating tension. But Mr. Roberts wasn't done yet. He began showing up at random places. At the cafe where we ate breakfast, outside the library where I taught her how to use computers, always watching, always threatening. When words failed him, he turned to more drastic measures. Armed with forged documents, he marched into the local police station, claiming Christy was mentally incapacitated and unfit to care for herself. "She needs supervision," he insisted, waving papers stamped with fake seals. "That man kidnapped her." The situation reached its boiling point one fateful afternoon when he confronted us directly. We were at my apartment going over university application forms, a symbol of Christy's growing independence, when there was a loud knock on the door. Before I could react, he barged in, his face contorted with rage. "How dare you take her away from me?" he bellowed, his voice shaking the walls. His eyes darted between Christy and me, wild and unhinged. For a moment, I thought he might lunge at me, but then he pulled something from behind his back. "A knife," Christy screamed, backing away until she hit the wall. "Dad, please stop this," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. But he didn't listen. Instead, he advanced toward me, brandishing the blade. "You've ruined everything," he spat, his breath ragged. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. Reaching for my phone, I dialed 911. "Sir, put the weapon down," I said firmly, my voice betraying none of the terror clawing at my chest. "This isn't solving anything." He hesitated, the knife trembling in his hand. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Realizing he was cornered, he dropped the weapon and collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Christy rushed to his side, torn between loyalty and fear. As officers stormed in, I stepped back, my heart pounding. It was over, for now, but deep down, I knew the battle for Christy's freedom was far from finished. The day I decided to confront Mr. Roberts, my hands trembled as I gathered the evidence that would either save Christy or destroy any chance of reconciliation. I had spent weeks meticulously documenting everything. The photographs of his medicine cabinet filled with pills he claimed were for her health. The lab results confirming Christy's perfect health, and even a recording of our last heated argument where he admitted keeping her confined out of fear. Each piece felt like a weapon in my arsenal, but also a burden. I wasn't just fighting for her freedom. I was challenging the fragile illusion this man had built around himself. I chose a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, far from prying eyes and distractions. It was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and burnt toast. When Mr. Roberts arrived, his posture was stiff, his jaw clenched tightly as though preparing for battle. He slid into the chair across from me, his piercing gaze boring into mine. "What is this about?" he demanded, his voice low but laced with venom. For a moment I hesitated, unsure how to begin dismantling years of lies without shattering him completely. "I'm here because we need to talk about Christy," I said finally, placing the folder of evidence on the table between us. His eyes flicked down to it, then back up to me, suspicion etched across his face. "You think you can waltz in here and tell me how to raise my daughter? You don't know what it's like, losing someone you love." His voice cracked on the last word, raw emotion spilling out like an open wound. "That's exactly why I'm here," I replied, my tone firm but gentle. "You're so afraid of losing her that you've locked her away, suffocating her with your fear instead of letting her live." I opened the folder, revealing the damning contents. "These are her medical records. She's healthy. She's always been healthy, oh, and these..." I pointed to the photos of the pill bottles. "These aren't treatments. They're control. You've been drugging her to keep her dependent." His face paled, his fingers trembling as he reached for the documents. "No, no, that's not true," he whispered, shaking his head violently. "I did it to protect her. My wife, she left me and I couldn't bear to lose Christy too. I thought if I kept her close, nothing bad would happen to her." His voice broke, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch someone slip away and not be able to stop it?" For a moment I pitied him. The pain in his eyes was palpable, a mirror of my own desperation to protect Christy. But pity wasn't enough, not when it came at the cost of her life. "I understand your fear," I said softly, leaning forward. "But by holding on to her so tightly, you've already lost her. Love isn't about possession. It's about giving her the freedom to grow, to make mistakes, to find her own path. If you truly love her, you'll let her go." At those words, something inside him seemed to snap. He slumped forward, his body convulsing with sobs. Before I could react, he collapsed, nearly falling off the chair. I rushed to steady him, guiding him back into his seat. His breathing was shallow, his face ghostly white. "Please," he choked out, gripping my arm weakly. "Don't take her from me. I can't lose her too." Holding him upright, I felt the weight of his grief pressing down on me. This wasn't just a man trying to control his daughter. It was a broken soul clinging to the last remnants of hope. "You won't lose her," I promised, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. "But you have to trust her enough to let her live." The day Christy's father finally agreed to let her go, the air was thick with emotion. He pulled her into a tight embrace, his voice trembling as he whispered, "I'm so sorry, my dear. I only wanted to protect you." Tears streamed down his face, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability in the man who had once been so unyielding. But even as he released her, his eyes betrayed lingering fear. What if she can't handle the world on her own? He murmured more to himself than anyone else. Determined to prove him wrong, Christy enrolled in university, a decision that filled me with pride but also concern. Her first days were overwhelming. She struggled with basic tasks like navigating campus or submitting assignments online. Yet with every challenge, she grew stronger. I stayed by her side, teaching her how to adapt, cheering her on when self-doubt crept in. Slowly, she began to find her footing, making friends and discovering passions she never knew existed. Just as things seemed to stabilize, life threw us another curveball. One evening, Christy received a call that shattered her newfound confidence. Her father had been in a severe car accident. She rushed to his side, torn between guilt and love. For weeks, she cared for him tirelessly, feeding him, reading to him, and holding his hand through sleepless nights. "You saved me once," he told her weakly one night. "Now it's your turn to live the life I couldn't give you." Though heartbroken, Christy refused to abandon her dreams. After ensuring her father was stable, she returned to university, carrying both his lessons and mine with her. Watching her walk across the graduation stage months later, diploma in hand, I realized something profound. Freedom isn't just about breaking free. It's about building a new life despite the scars left behind. In the final pages of my journal, I wrote, "Love isn't possession, it's liberation." The journey to free Christy had taught me that true love demands sacrifice, even when it breaks your heart. As she stood on stage, diploma in hand, her smile radiated triumph. From afar, I watched alongside her father, our eyes meeting briefly, a silent acknowledgement of shared pain and growth. His pride mirrored mine, though we both knew letting go was the hardest act of love. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.